Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaradama Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanand Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya Astoru Shishimat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya Astoru Shishimat His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Anantikoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Naam Acharya Saridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sisi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Navadip Dham Ki Ganga Maya Jamuna Maya Ki Bhakti Devi Tulasi Devi Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam 4th Canto, 22nd chapter, text number 19. Sangama kalu sadhunam. Sangama kalu sadhunam. Ubaye samcha sama sammata. Yat sambhasana samprashna. Sarvesham vitanoti sam. Sangamakalu sadhunam. Ubayesam cha sammata. Yat sambhasana samprashna. Sarvesham vitanotisam. Sangamakalu sadunam. Ubayesham cha sammata. Yat sambhasana samprashna. Sarvesham vitanotisam. Sangamakalu sadunam. Ubayesham cha sammata. Yat sambhashana samprashna. Sarvesham vitanotisam. Sangamakalu sadunam. Ubayesam cha sammata. Yat sambhashana samprashna. Sarvesham vitanotisam. Sangamakalu sadunam. Ubayesam cha sammata. Yat sambhashana samprashna. Sarvesham vitanotisam. Sangamakalu sadunam. Ubayesham cha sammata. Yat sambhashana samprashna. Sarvesham vitanotisam. Word for word. Sangama, association. Kalu, certainly. Sadhunam, of devotees. Ubayesham, for both. Cha, also. Sammata, conclusive. Yat, which. Sambhashana, discussion. Samprashna, question and answer. Sarvesham, of all. Vitanoti, expands. Some, real happiness. The translation: when there is a congregation of devotees, their discussions, question and answers become conclusive to both the speaker and the audience. Thus, such a meeting is beneficial for everyone's real happiness. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Hearing discussions among the devotees is the only means to receive the powerful message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For instance, Bhagavad Gita has been well known all over the world for a very long time, especially in the Western world. But because the subject matter was not discussed by devotees, there was no effect. Not a single person in the West became Krishna conscious before the Krishna consciousness movement was founded. But when the same Bhagavad Gita was presented as it is through the disciplic succession, the effect of spiritual realization was immediately manifested. Sanat Kumar, one of the Kumaras, informed Prithu Maharaj that his meeting with the Kumaras benefited not only Maharaj Prithu, but the Kumaras as well. When Narada Muni questioned Lord Brahma about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Brahma thanked Narada for giving him a chance to speak about the Supreme Lord. Therefore, questions put by a saintly person to another saintly person about the Supreme Personality of Godhead or about the ultimate goal of life surcharge everything spiritually. Whoever takes advantage of such discussions is benefited both in this life and in the next. The word ubayasham can be described in many ways. Generally, there are two classes of men, the materialist and the transcendentalist. By hearing discussion between devotees, both the materialist and the transcendentalist are benefited. The materialist is benefited by the association with devotees because his life then becomes regulated so that his chance of becoming a devotee or making the present life successful for understanding the real position of the living entity is increased. When one takes advantage of this opportunity, he is assured of a human form of life in the next birth. Or he may be liberated completely and go back home, back to Godhead. The conclusion is that if one participates in a discussion of devotees, he is both materially and spiritually benefited. The speaker and the audience are both benefited. The karmis and jnanis are benefited. The discussion of spiritual matters among devotees is beneficial for everyone without exception. Consequently, the Kumaras admitted that not only the king benefited such a meeting, but the Kumaras as well. So I'll just read the text again. When there is a congregation of devotees, their discussions, question and answers become conclusive to both the speaker and the audience. Thus, such a meeting is beneficial for everyone's real happiness. So there's many points that we could discuss on this particular topic, and the subsequent verses will be speaking about the same points, association, and you see that theme is flowing. There are many points, but I'll just mention a few. Hearing, first point is hearing among discussion among devotees. The second point is the power of the disciplic succession. The third point is that spiritual discussion between saintly persons. The fourth point is beneficial both for the materialist and the transcendentalist. For somebody who is materialistic, who's just coming for the first time, or somebody who is already on that level of transcendence or has surrendered to Krishna, it's beneficial to both people. And this mutual benefit, as we mentioned, beneficial to both. But then the speaker, the hearer, everybody benefits. So these topics that we discuss from the scriptures is important. Because Krishna Katha, the topics of Krishna, are so pure that whenever it's spoken, the place, the hearer, the inquirer, the speaker, and all concerned becomes purified. So when you're sitting in the environment, purification takes place. The person who's hearing it, the person who's also inquiring, but also it's beneficial to the speaker. He's also purified in the process of speaking. Because when we're speaking for our own purification. It's not that, I'm such an advanced person that I'm sitting here and y'all are less advanced. In some cases, the audience is more advanced than the speaker. Just like once somebody was telling me, a devotee reads sometimes and, kind of implying that he should be speaking. But I said, no, we still go and hear the class. It's important that we hear. So speaking about Krishna, so in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned about the Bhagavad Gita, how it had, there were many translations of the Gita previously that had went to many parts of the world, but not one person had become a devotee. But also, the scripture forbids speaking above the qualification of one audience, and hearing beyond one's own qualification. Both are applicable. So speaking above the qualifications of the audience. And Krishna prohibits this. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, he says that this confidential knowledge is never explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. So he already gives it in the Gita, in the 67 text and the 18th chapter. So this confidential knowledge is not given to everybody. And even people get Bhagavad Gita, but they don't get the association of a devotee. They may also not be able to surrender. So the Lord is warning us. And there also every morning we recite the 10 offenses. And there again we are warned of indiscriminate speaking and hearing. Because it is an offense to preach the glories of the holy name to persons who have no intelligence or no faith in the subject matter. Sometimes devotees are so enthusiastic, they just want to preach the glories of Krishna to a person who's faithless. And once Srila Prabhupada, one devotee, probably in one of the European countries, was speaking about the glories of the holy name to an ordinary person who had come, and Prabhupada said, no, you shouldn't speak to him because he has no faith. So one has to be very, very conscious of this, because we are always saying this, and this is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, also in the Padma Purana, all the offenses of the holy name. And we also have to speak the scripture in a way that is consistent to the previous acharyas. We have to be very consistent. And we should not divert. And Prabhupada was speaking about, impersonalists and in the purport. And sometimes, in India, most specifically India, but maybe in many other parts of the world now, they have like a 7-day recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And they gather large crowds, and people pay to attend these meetings. And they go for the way Prabhupada mentions it, like maybe 3 to 4 hours each sessions. But the reading, is typically centered around Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. Often actually, often speaking about the gopis, sometimes interspersed with songs and related to the same subjects. So they have they sing also, they have a harmonium, they sing. But Srila Prabhupada was against this type of glorification by the sadhus. Because these are like faithless impersonalists, and they commit offenses. Because this type of subject matter is on that level, it's a very high subject matter, and they're speaking to an audience who's unqualified to hear. So hearing is very important, but speaking, the speaker also has to know his audience. And in most cases, these types of people speak for material purposes, just to make some money. These are professional reciters. And I'll just read what Prabhupada said in a Srimad Bhagavatam, in a purport. He says, professional speakers and materially absorbed audience cannot derive real benefit from such discourses. Therefore, he mentioned earlier on that in his purport, what we read today, that prior to the Krishna consciousness movement, there was not a person who really surrendered to Krishna. Professional speakers make a show of Bhagavad Sapta for the sake of family maintenance and materially disposed audience hears such discourses for some material benefit. And what is that material benefit? Namely wealth, liberation, religiosity, or sense gratification. So this is what professional reciters do. But Srila Prabhupada, he taught us how to avoid offenses while speaking of Krishna. And he said, when we in front of common people, like a mixed qualification, there's like a mixed audience, then we speak about God as a person. And you see, his topics are the difference between matter and spirit and chanting Hare Krishna, 3 things. These are our means for salvation. He didn't get into the topics of Krishna Leela or Vrindavan Leela. I'm not saying you must not get there. That's not the point. But the point I'm making, the way he taught how to give this philosophy. And his general rule was to speak on subjects that fit for the least qualified person, the person who's least qualified. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam class, it's meant mainly for devotees. Then we meant to speak a little more, but we'll discuss that point a little later. Or we could now. Like generally you get a response from devotees, older devotees in the audience, because you find, when you speak about you're not this body, and sometimes people don't like to hear it all the time. And that's what Prabhupada is speaking, the difference between matter and spirit. And even older devotees sitting in the audience, can't he speak about something else? That's also there. And that's not what was Prabhupada's strategy. He did not approve of this kind of speaking, just delving into deeply straight into the pastimes. If a person doesn't have understanding of this, you're not the body. Like I was being interviewed by a television, the local television in Richards Bay, the Ratha Yatra. And in the Richards Bay Ratha Yatra, and I spoke on the same point, how you're not the body, and different points on separate development and apartheid. Sri Raghunath ki. So in different aspects I was speaking on. So I texted my daughter and I told her, can you guess what I was speaking of? She said, yes, I know. The usual. You're not the body. She responded. But we're meant to speak on you're not the body, but the spirit soul within. And we see how Srila Prabhupada also spoke, and how I think Parthasarathi Maharaj was explaining on Lord Chaitanya's appearance day that how Lord Chaitanya spoke. he would simply chant Hare Krishna. He would describe like broad aspects of the pastimes of Ramananda Rai, Swarup Damodar. To his closest companions, he would discuss these pastimes. And he would open his heart and sing and hear about the intimate dealings between Krishna and Srimati Radharani. So this is the authorized way of really, how Gaudiya Vaishnavas speak. And that is also following Rupa Goswami, the previous Acharya, where he says, this is a very important verse, Asvato Rasikai Saha Sajatiyasya Snigde Sadhu Sango Svato Vare. And this is quite interesting. One should taste the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the company of pure devotees. And one should associate with devotees who are more advanced than oneself, and who are endowed with a similar type of affection for the Lord. This is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he talks about Sajatiyasya Snigde, must be pleasing to the same class of people. Must be pleasing. This is in the Antya Leela. Chapter 5, text 107, if you want to read it up. Thus, when devotees are speaking to mixed audiences, the topic suitable for everyone, we should speak for everyone who is present. But, as I was mentioning earlier on, sometimes devotees think, wow, why can't you speak some other topic? And they find it boring. But there's a defect. If you're an advanced devotee, you'll find it, you wouldn't find it boring. So there's different levels of advancement also, sometimes we overestimate people's advancement also. So that you have to be cautious about that. Then you may say, well, we must not judge devotees. Then how are you going to make advancement? Because then you won't associate, you'll be just associating with neophytes, and then you won't make advancement. So there is that discrimination. We have to discriminate. Yes, he's more advanced, so I'll associate with him. And in the Bhagavatam, or the truth about advanced devotees, that any topic related to Krishna is nectarian. Any topic. It reminds me, I heard once what Gandhi said, that, my Krishna, the way he understood it is in Bhagavad Gita. But when Krishna is dancing, when he hears that Krishna is dancing with the gopis or in the Ras Leela, that is not Krishna for him. Then he said he will resign from the Hindu religion. So the truth is that advanced devotees, any topic related, it's nectarian. And that verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 31st chapter, text number 9. Tava katamritam tapta jivanam kavibiriditam kalmasapaham shravana mangalam srimad atatam bhuvi grinantite ye bhuri dajana. And I'll read that translation. The nectar of your words and the description of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. These narrations transmitted by learned sages eradicates one's sinful reactions and bestows good fortune upon whoever hears them. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Certainly those who spread the message of Godhead are most munificent. So you can see that just by hearing, because this is transmitted, you must know by learned sages, the scripture, the verses, the Bhagavatam is coming from learned sages. And when you hear it, then all these sinful reactions go away. And you feel a sense of pleasure. So the person would, like, and Srila Prabhupada was saying that before, indirectly, saying that before he went to the West, there weren't any devotees made by Bhagavad Gita. That's what he said in his purport. But you can well imagine as to how he went all over the world and gave Krishna consciousness. And you find that even, as you mature as a devotee, and we're talking about now a very advanced devotee, he sees all things moving and non-moving. What to speak, like topics that are related to him, meaning to Krishna, they see that as the same. And in one of his lectures, he mentioned even the rasa dance, the entire creation, because people sometimes don't like to listen about not the body, about creation, but they want to listen about the Ras Leela. But Prabhupada said in his lecture in 11 September 1976, those who are advanced, they know that Krishna's dancing with the gopis, that Leela, and Krishna's playing as a leader of the battlefield of Kurukshetra is the same. It is all transcendental. It's all spiritual. And this he gave in 11 September 1976. And we find that association from the purport, what we mentioned, is very important, and we should take the association of more advanced devotees. And thinking that, Sanat Kumar is saying that, Prithu Maharaj, they're also benefiting from Prithu Maharaj's association. It worked both ways. Although they were so effulgent, bright, and more, seemingly, in one sense, more advanced, but they were benefiting from Prithu Maharaj's association, who was also an advanced devotee. It's like just like when you have a child, if you have children, when they're doing things when they were a child, you're very appreciative. But then they grow a little older and they do other things, and you find it more relishable. You're still finding it relishable. So similarly, advanced devotees, if they hear something that's maybe on a lower level, but they still should appreciate and relish it. So we should follow this. This is how Prabhupada taught us. We should follow that. There's another very important in a lecture that Prabhupada spoke. He said we have to understand Krishna in truth. And what does mean understanding Krishna in truth? Not just simply superficially we just understand Krishna, that Krishna was born. He was born in Mathura, father, and he had a father and mother, Vasudevaki and Vasudev. And then he played with the gopis. He taught something on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That is not sufficient knowledge. This, just knowing that, that's not sufficient knowledge. And then he goes on to say that yes, we should try to understand Krishna samagram. And what does that mean? That's in the 7th chapter of the first text of the Gita. As far as possible, incomplete. Then our devotion, our love for Krishna will be increased. So hearing is very important. And we find that our morning program, we have the Bhagavatam class. It gives us a chance to hear. Maya Sakta Manapartha, that's the verse. Yogam Yunjan Mad Ashraya. You have to surrender. Asamsayam samagram mam. So, yata janasi tachrinu. Try to hear. Just try to hear. But complete. Samagram. But then again, as devotees, we should not hide, or even if somebody is advanced, do not hide Krishna's pastimes. They talk about Krishna's pastime. But the preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement should make introductory presentation of such topics to the public. In a nutshell, in a very concise way. We don't get into the, very much deeply into the details, which we spoke earlier on. For how Lord Chaitanya order is to preach Krishna's message to the world. So just like Krishna and his message are inseparable from his pastimes. You can't separate them. So then the responsibility falls onto the speaker. He has to determine the audience fitness and then present accordingly. So how do we know we're being successful in that, doing that? The audience appreciates Krishna's message and understands Krishna. They don't think that Krishna is a mundane person like that. So they do disclose Krishna's pastime to neophytes. If they do, then the preaching, we should be careful. We should be careful about that. And Prabhupada writes in one purport, I was reading it last night, on the 3rd canto, 25th chapter, text 36. Even third-class devotees who have no literary knowledge or no time to read Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita gets the opportunity to hear about the pastimes of the Lord. This is quite interesting because sometimes we may not have that taste for reading. In this way, their minds may remain always absorbed in thought of the Lord, His form, His activities, and His transcendental nature. So we are giving that opportunity to everybody, as Prabhupada says in the purport, that anybody can rise and come to the highest level. There's a lot to talk about. Let me talk a little bit about the effects of hearing. So one has to have taste. And taste comes, over a period of time. Especially when we not only singing kirtan or leading kirtan, no, by hearing about the philosophy. And then we find that we get that sweetness. And this is the result of offenseless hearing. Because sometimes you may be sitting here and you may be just wanting to leave. It happens. And sometimes people do come, and they may come on the basis of, I have to go. If I don't go, what he'll think of me. That's also not here. So there's different ways people may come to hear a class. But we should just come and hear. And if anybody's speaking, just hear what they're saying. Try to absorb a little bit what they said. Generally, I try to write as much as possible what devotees are saying. And then I go to the room and I read it again. So that the more the devotees hear the sound, the more you want to hear them. And it becomes sweeter, sweeter. And that's how he accelerates to that point of self-realization and on the coming to the highest level. And you all heard the example of when Lord Chaitanya was visiting South India and he met that illiterate Brahmana and he would daily turn to the pages of the Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada was speaking in the purport again about this Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes he was pronouncing the words properly and sometimes not. Like sometimes we're not good at pronouncing Sanskrit. Sometimes we don't. We just say it anyway. But he could not understand what he was reading. But he had faith in the transcendental vibration. So he was an illiterate person. He had that faith. And Lord Chaitanya certified him as the highest authority. Highest authority. That's how it's put there in the Madhya Leela. Because I was meant to give class tomorrow, but anyway, today the devotee couldn't make it, so I was asked to fill in. But I was reading it last night. I was just thinking, wow. And I read this before. The experience he had, such potency of hearing spiritual sound, the potency, just by hearing it. And I copied it. I said, actually, I see Lord Krishna. The Brahman is saying, actually, I see Lord Krishna sitting on the chariot as Arjuna's charioteer. Taking the rein in his hands, he appears very beautiful and blackish. While seeing Lord Krishna sitting in a chariot and instructing Arjuna, I am filled with ecstatic happiness. As long as I read Bhagavad Gita, I simply see the Lord's beautiful features. It is for this reason that I am reading the Bhagavad Gita and my mind cannot be distracted from this. So somebody by just looking, turning the pages, hearing Katha or Krishna, or following the instructions of the spiritual master, he comes to that point of seeing Krishna, seeing the pastime. But this is just an illiterate person. So it's so wonderful, But therefore hearing, has two effects. It makes a person increasingly eager to hear, and it completely relieves him from fatigue. For us, maybe not so much, because we're still on the journey. It's like sometimes people want to hear more and more. And it's there in the Bhagavatam. We never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationships with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. And then the pastimes become sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. And then they hear pastimes of Lord Narayan, it's sweet, of his incarnations. But most of all, the pastimes of Krishna is the sweetest. And then, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan is so sweet. But with the gopis in Vrindavan, it's nectarian, it's the sweetest. But ultimately, the pastime of Srimati Radharani is the sweetest, is the nectar. So yes, so the devotee gets attached to hearing. There's so much can be said. Attentive hearing. And there's a talk about Narada Muni there also in the purport, that he asked Brahma a question, and Brahma became very pleased because he could speak. So and Narada, just by the association of devotees himself, realized his own spiritual form. We won't get into the details, you know all that. But just by serving and hearing the sadhus, he reached the topmost level. So that is the process. It's 8:21, but I'll just speak on a few more points because I have many things to say on this particular topic. I'll discuss this point, and then we can you can ask questions. Honor principles of hearing during discourse. Authorized Vaishnavas, be they speakers or listeners, must honor the principle during Krishna conscious discourses. They should keep in mind the example of Sukadev Goswami, the original speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam. When the great sage observed that members of his audience are still attached to karma and jnana and were disturbed upon hearing about Krishna's Rasa Leela, he concluded that part of his discourse. He then began to narrate how Krishna saved Nanda Maharaj from being swallowed by a snake. So yes, this was from the 10th canto, the 33rd chapter. This is talking about the Rasa Leela. So we should know how to speak and what to say when and how. But it's not that we kind of just neglect that. Because as devotees advance more, then they can speak more about that and associate with devotees in that advanced level. And then it reminds me about sometimes people think that how, ISKCON devotees, will they ever go back to Godhead? And, Shivram Maharaj, he speaks about a devotee from North England who was a wife of the temple president, and she was terminally ill. But she was not a well-known person, She just kept the temple accounts, she guided the ladies, she raised the children. In other words, we would say she was not a big devotee. And she was only first initiated. And she did not even have the Brahman Diksha, which is the second initiation. But then, as time went, she was ill, then she revealed to her husband her spiritual identity. That she was a gopi in Nandagram. So like this, while she was in pain, when somebody has cancer, she started, revealing some of the services that she was rendering to Krishna in Vrindavan. And one of the most favorite thing was how she would pack his lunch. So this person was not on the highest level of a Mahabhagavat. But she, because she followed the order of the spiritual master, and she was also not second initiated, she was able to come to this platform. Generally, Diksha means second initiation, really, technically. It's second initiation, where one is given mantras, because the Hare Krishna mantra, in one sense, is given to everybody freely. even before initiation. You get it? Because anybody can chant. But she was able to go back to Godhead. Now this is from, he was quoting, actually he didn't, it is quoted, this is from Simple for the Simple. This is Puri Maharaj's wife. And this book, I printed it at Art Printers, many thousands of copies, under the direction of Partha Maharaj. And Sudama designed the cover. And Maharaj said how it should be with Mother Yashoda and Baby Krishna, the color, green, and everything, the colors. And it was designed. And we printed this book. And then I took this book, a large number to a few hundred copies to Vrindavan and gave it to one local bookseller there to sell these books. Simple for the simple. So yes, people can come to that level of Krishna consciousness, that highest level, just by hearing. So taking the association of other devotees is important. But also we have to discriminate and take an association of advanced devotees. We respect the neophytes, and we also pay respects to the advanced devotees. Just like it was an interesting class given by Bhanu Swami, which Sarup sent to me to hear. And it's mentioned how we respect, like, we all respect the devotees, but some people will respect more. In a family, it's like that also. Maybe your uncles you'll have more respect for. Your grandfather you may have the most respect for. So similarly, in the in our movement, we do the same. We respect other devotees. We respect our spiritual masters, or we respect anybody who's giving us knowledge. We respect them. But we have most respect for the founder Acharya. That everybody has, anyway. Even if our spiritual masters are on the level of Uttama Adhikari. That's another question. But it's not that. There may be people in our movement that are on that level. And the guidelines are given in the scriptures as to who is and who is not, but still it's difficult to know the heart of a Vaishnava. So therefore we respect everybody. There's no overestimation of, we don't overestimate also at the same time and have false understanding of people and devotees. But respect must be there. It's like, just like when you're speaking, if two devotees, just say for example, I'm speaking to a new person. Somebody comes in. A third devotee should not come and chip in and speak. Because that's not very good. Because one devotee was asking me the question, came to my room and asked me that question. And I said, no, that's not good. Because you don't know how we're developing that person, to what level we're taking him through, to reach that point that I want to drive to him. And you may disturb that conversation. So speaking and hearing is important. When somebody is speaking, we don't intercept. So these are some of the points that I wanted to speak from the purport, which highlights the purport about the Bhagavad Gita, hearing, the speaker. And we'll stop here, we'll take some questions. We started 5 minutes late. I want to inform you. Okay, let me. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for your enlightenment. I just want to make a quick comment. Like sometimes, like when you're going out for programs, people's houses, like we do a 15-minute kirtan and then maybe a 20 minutes or 25 minutes class. But also the most important thing is we as people should listen to the class more and listen about Krishna more. So kirtan is there, but also they should listen to the class more. They should listen to the class, the message is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, it's a comment. That's a good comment. Thank you very much for that. Yes, both are important. Shravanam, Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, hearing, chanting. So speaking is also important. Hearing the philosophy, as we read, that hearing this, the philosophy, just not knowing, Krishna is born in Mathura, he is the Supreme Lord, is not good enough. That's what Prabhupada said. But both are important. But let me, from my experiences, many people don't have the taste for hearing. It's not, or they may have other activities to do. Like sometimes people have to leave the class, but they got other activities and other things to do. But hearing is quite important, because as I was describing, just by hearing this Brahman could see Krishna in the battlefield. And when one is connected to a bona fide spiritual master, that's another topic. But anyway, we will get into it some other time. But yes, what you said is right, that sometimes people just want to, we should chant Hare Krishna, but we should give the basic philosophy when we go to people's homes. And that's important. When you just give the basic philosophy, this body is spirit, soul, and you chant Hare Krishna. And we don't get more into sometimes devotees forget, they forget, and then they will speak for many hours, and the people are falling off asleep. When I'm speaking, I watch the whole audience. When people are falling off to sleep, then I try to stop. But also is Vaishnav Seva, that what good. We're doing some service there, taking rest while I was speaking. But see, Radhika Jeevan, he goes up there, he stands in the back. And that's it, because you want to hear what we're saying. So yes, thank you for that. Yes, John. Anybody else want to say anything? Really?
It's so nice to hear the words of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's name, Yashodama, Radharani. It's so beautiful to hear you speak.
Thank you. What's your name?
Sangeeta.
Sangeeta. Okay, Sangeeta. Thank you for coming along. We'll talk to you after the class. Yeah.
Raghava Pandit's sister.
Huh?
Raghava Pandit.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So how's he doing? He's okay. Okay.
Nice to see you after a long time. Good. Yeah, you used to come regularly before. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Earlier on you mentioned about professional reciters of Bhagavad Katha, Sapta Katha, Sapta. So I used to visit one family, very prominent Gujarati family in Durban. They were very well known. And we should frequent the flat often, and they were very, very wonderful, favorable to Krishna consciousness. But she would take delight in playing all these, I don't know what, CDs or what was before CDs?
Those tapes.
Yeah, cassettes. Yeah. And these were like very prominent from the Gujarati community. They were Ramesh Oza, and I forget
Yeah.
there was two very prominent, and they would attract, like you said, very big audiences would come and they would speak, but all esoteric subject matters of Krishna's pastime, Leela, and they would also charter ships. All the wealthy people would go by, and they would, while the ship is going from dock to dock, they would recite all these, people going more for pleasure than, it's like a mixed kind of bag they're getting. But in their heart, I think they have this thing that they are Krishna devotees, because Krishna was in Dwaraka, they speak highly of Krishna. But, when they come to the West, they forget all the culture. And gradually we see how they kind of adopted Western cultures through intermarriage and so many, and they kind of lost, and they, there's no more purity in there. Yeah, so this was my observation of them, yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, the thing is, they can hear, but they're not benefited because they don't know Krishna in full. They may hear one aspect, but it's just like, Krishna is perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. So they may hear some parts of it, and they may get some benefit, maybe a little benefit, because sometimes people even watching Bollywood movies get some benefit, because sometimes there's a picture of Krishna, they may see him there, Like, when we were young, we watched a lot of, we were in the 70s, so we watched movies, Hindi movies. And we would see, sometimes it was the spiritual subject matters come up. But they benefit, to a certain extent, but they don't really take seriously to the process of Krishna consciousness. They don't really surrender to Krishna in the true sense of the word. You could say they have a little surrender, they're hearing the Vrindavan Leela pastime, but you're hearing it from people who are not following this process. And if you're hearing it from those types of people who are not following the process, then it's like milk, touched by the lips, by the serpent. It becomes poisonous. And they have a different perception of Krishna consciousness. Like, once I got a call from somebody in Vrindavan and was talking about how, it's a male person, but like in the now playing the part of a gopi. And said, no, I know you won't accept these things because you knew that I'm an ISKCON devotee, because they get into what their spiritual form is. It's like sahajiyas. Like once I was in Barsana, and there was a person dressed with a sari, so he's putting his hand out there. So I told him, what, are you Lalita Sakhi? He said, Lalita Sakhi, Lalita Sakhi. But he was more interested in money. So yes, these kind of things, we can talk about, hear the Vrindavan Leela pastimes. But if you're qualified enough, and then then it's okay to hear. But I could say so many different other things that I thought of, but I didn't know. Time's up now, but this in essence, what is the result of hearing from these type of people who are just diving into these topics? It's dangerous also. So thank you very much for those inputs. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.